involved in numerous fleeing and lootings. There was a stolen vehicle. They set up on it, and officers went to make contact with the subject that was the driver of the vehicle, and one of our officers unintentionally discharged his firearm during the incident. Fortunately, no one was injured during the incident, and at this point, we're conducting an internal investigation of the entire incident, and also the Michigan State Police they've been called in to conduct a criminal investigation portion. Once the criminal investigation is concluded, then we will move on with the internal investigation, and at that point, we'll release the findings of both. I want to say also, this was a traumatic incident, especially for the subject that was a driver. I believe his name is Mr. Smith, and I recognize that, empathize with him, that he was placed in this situation. It's not a good experience for anyone. And with that said, though, I am very fortunate. We're very fortunate no one was injured during this incident. At this time, I'll take some questions on what I can answer.
Have you spoken to Mr. Smith since it happened?
At this time, I have not. Of course, there's 2 investigations that are ongoing, and I would not want to interfere with those investigations. At some point, I would be glad to sit down when it's appropriate to have a conversation with Mr. Smith.
How exactly did this happen, Chief? I mean, what's your understanding about how the weapon discharged?
Again, that's part of the investigation, but initially the preliminary inquiries into it that it was an unintentional accidental discharge. But I would not want to speculate until the investigation is completed.
Chief, did the suspect pose that enough of a threat for the police officer to, discharge his weapon or have his weapon out? He or she?
Right. Again, this was a vehicle that was a stolen vehicle that we had intel on that had been involved in shootings. Again, it's officers' discretion on when they pull their weapons. But this vehicle had been involved in several incidents of violent nature, and the officer felt that it was appropriate to have his weapon up. But again, this will all be part of the investigation.
Is it standard order procedures for officers if they see a vehicle that they believe is the one that they're looking for to either run the VIN number or tag number to make sure that this is in fact the vehicle?
Standard, yes, but I mean, to get that close and to look at the VIN, I don't know whether that was able to be accomplished that night. We'll find that out during the investigation.
In retrospect, would you have wanted your officers to do that? To do their research? Is that usually ideal? It seems like if you establish a perimeter that you'd want, and you kind of made this plan to approach the suspect, that you would know what vehicle it is.
Ideally, yes. However, again, at this point, I have not talked to the officers that were involved. That's why the investigation is being conducted to find out the entire incident, not just the discharge of the weapon will be investigated, but the entire incident will be reviewed.
Do you have a timeline? I know it's hard to say on when the internal investigation and the MSB investigation will wrap up.
I do not at this time. We want to make sure it's a thorough, comprehensive investigation and everything is covered. So I would not want to try and put a time limit on when the investigation would be concluded.
Is it typical for Michigan State Police to get involved in these types of incidents?
Typical, when it, I think it's more appropriate for an outside agency, third party, to come in and do the investigation. They have, they have no connection with GRPD. It was a GRPD officer, and we do have a policy set up, a city policy, where Michigan State Police is the investigative agency that would come in and review incidents such as this.
Now, is that officer, in the meantime, as the investigation goes on off patrol or on desk, or?
Yeah, the officer's on leave right now, and has been.
The victim said to Channel 13 that he accidentally discharged a weapon. Without question, he would have been charged. Is that going to happen to this officer when this investigation is concluded? Are you able to comment on that?
I'm not. I mean, that's why Michigan State Police is investigating. If they feel that there's enough information, they'll turn it over to the prosecutor, who will then make their determination.
What does the department learn about a situation like this? Because you're right, no one was injured, so it's okay. But what if this would have struck this person or someone else, an innocent bystander? What has the department learned from this situation?
I wouldn't say it's okay. We take this very seriously. Fortunately, it doesn't happen often. In fact, we had to look back in our records, and it was back 20 years ago where we had an officer in a similar situation that had a unintentional discharge. But I wouldn't say it was okay. I'm glad and fortunate that no one was hurt. I do empathize with Mr. Smith, who was involved in this. Very traumatic. It's not something that we want to happen. Just because it doesn't happen often does not make this incident okay, just because he wasn't struck.
How many years of service for the officer?
He's been on the department plus 20 years. I don't have the exact time, but over 20 years.
Was the discharge, was it close? I mean, can you say, I mean, it was in the direction of the subject that you were looking at, is that right? Or I don't know how close it was to...
I don't know. I wouldn't want to speculate on that. Again, that's why the investigation is being conducted, and I'll have that information later.
This car and this suspect that you guys are looking for, is that person still on the loose? Is this a situation where the public should still be on alert?
As far as I know, yes. We have not recovered that stolen vehicle, and it has been involved in other incidents.
About how many officers were on scene?
I don't have the exact number. I believe I don't have the exact number.
Any more questions?
Again, thank you everyone for coming here this morning. I thought it was important that I give an update to the community on where we stand with the investigation and that we take it seriously. And again, this was a traumatic experience for everyone, especially Mr. Smith, who was the driver of the vehicle. And we will learn from this, and we will continue to try to do better with trying to keep this community safe. Thank you.